All right, let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room that the handsomest member of the Geek cast is the only member on right now. That is simply because Jim and Seamus have not gotten a chance to get around to seeing the movie. We're also going to address the elephant in the room. That is, I am a massive fanboy of the franchise, of the film, the original Blade Runner film, as is Old Man Jim. In fact, this is the reason why I ended up buying a square Scotch glass just because Deckard constantly drinks out of one of these bad boys throughout the first film. I am that guy who is so mindlessly devoted to the film. However, the only difference between me and your run of the mill fanboy is that I actually managed to get into the pants of several young ladies in my pubescent years. So, without further ado, we're going to talk about my thoughts on Blade Runner 2049. This is the sequel that none of us asked for, but some of us may or may not have deserved. And as always, my thoughts are going to be unfiltered and just ready for your amusement. So, first off, we're going to talk about Denis Villeneuve. This man, in my opinion, may be this generation's Martin Scorsese. If you have not gotten around to checking out his other films, such as Prisoner, Enemy, Rival, Sicario, please, for the love of God, watch those movies. Those are just masterpieces in of themselves. Sicario is by far one of the most tense films that's not a horror film that I've seen. Anyhow, we're here to talk about Blade Runner. We're here to talk about film noir detectives hunting robots. Initially, the very beginning of the film is something that a lot of fanboys of the first film will appreciate. Without going into spoilers, all that I'm going to say is that the very beginning of the film is something that almost made it into the very first film. And on that note, Dave Bautista, a lot of fans know him from his professional wrestling and from Guardians of the Galaxy. I was very surprised with him. He took an inch and turned it into a mile very effectively. That man has some acting chops, which is quite impressive to me. So good on you, Mr. Batista. Now, on top of that, I'd also like to talk about the Goose, good old Ryan Gosling. This guy, he's good. He is really, really good. I don't think I've seen him in something this. I don't think that I've seen him in something this engaging since I saw The Nice Guys, directed by Shane Black. Now, as far as Harrison Ford and all of that, don't go into this film expecting it to be a whole lot of Harrison Ford, because first and foremost, this is the Goose's story, Ryan Gosling. One of the stars of the film to me, I can't pronounce her name, her last name, but it's Anna something. She plays she plays a form of artificial intelligence, and she really steals the show in whatever scenes that she's in. I definitely want to see more of her in more films. Although I did get to see as much of her as physically possible, because there are several fully nude scenes throughout this film. So don't take the kids with you to see this one. Pervy jokes aside, I was actually pretty satisfied with the majority of this film. I was a little bit worried initially from the trailers because my girlfriend pointed out that she thought that it was being advertised as an action film, which is not what Blade Runner is all about. It's about a mystery, it's about a chase, and it's about tracking clues like a good film noir gumshoe type of storyline, which primarily it was. To its credit, it did not play out like the original cut of Blade Runner, so there's no you don't have to sit through the goose trying to give a voiceover throughout the film. So that was a relief on my part right there. Mm. Whiskey. Now, as far as the story for Blade Runner 2049, I really can't get into much without giving out spoilers, so I'm going to refrain from that for now. But what I will say is Blade Runner, to me, the first film focused a lot on a personal story, a lot of personal growth and development, and it dealt with the ideas of empathy and life and death, things of that nature. This film, it does focus on empathy quite a bit. And on that note, I gotta like I have to give a round of applause to Denis Villeneuve and Roger Deakins for following, or I feel like they listened to me when I talked about my problem with a lot of films, because to me, I believe that for film, you should show and not tell. There was so much translated visually that made so much sense, which is what I love about the first Blade Runner film. So much is communicated visually. Now, that being said, if you're going to communicate something visually, do it as stylistically as possible if you're trying to communicate something, some sort of a broad concept. That's what made the first Blade Runner so great. A lot of people would classify the first Blade Runner as hard sci-fi. I'm going to go ahead and argue that it was the first big budget art house film. And I believe that this film really followed suit with that. It was a very slow burn. And there is a good amount of build up to many, many pretty cool things in the plot. I'm still trying to process quite a few things that happened, which I suppose is good. Because the first Blade Runner, I remember watching that, and I immediately knew that I had to watch it a second, third, maybe even fourth time to fully get a grasp on it. I feel like it's going to be the same with this one. There was one subplot that was addressed once, and then they kind of did a Tommy Wiseau and just never pursued it again, which I found mildly irritating. But that's just one gripe in a film that I think was actually pretty masterfully done. Now, granted, when I heard that the Blade Runner sequel was coming out, I was initially against it because I just honestly didn't think that there was much else to do with Blade Runner as far as making a sequel. I thought that it was a bad idea. However, I feel like Denis Villeneuve also felt the same way. And he took the approach that he's going to tackle this because he's a fan. And if anybody else gets their mitts on it, they're going to fuck it up. Which I think Villeneuve did the best job he could without fucking it up. Now, a lot of people are probably going to be asking, is it as good as the original Blade Runner? Maybe. Initially, I'm going to say no, because I don't want to deal with the hordes of fanboys coming after me, and I don't want to deal with regretting that statement and coming out later and making it look like I changed my mind. So I honestly don't know. I think that it has the potential to be something great. And the thing about the original Blade Runner 2 is that it really, over time, it became the cult classic that it is today. Maybe this will be the case for this film. We'll see. I see Seamus just joined.
Hello.
How are you doing, buddy?
I got back to my house at 7, fell asleep, or ate a double cheeseburger, fell asleep, woke up at 11. So I feel very strange.
You feel like you're in a different world altogether.
Oh, yes.
I can dig it, man. So,
So the hell are Patrick and I? Just chop liver? Or
shit,
you
man.
just ignore your co-hosts?
That's my bad. I realized partway through, I thought that you guys were just watching. I thought you guys were just watching. Honestly, my headphones weren't plugged in like I thought they were, so that's kind of a problem. We're having some technical difficulties. However, yeah, I'm glad I didn't get into spoilers. But Patrick, did you get a chance to check out Blade Runner 2049 yet?
Your microphone is muted, Patrick.
Mr. McPike. All right, well, my mistake, guys. I am a terrible primary host. In all honesty, I actually thought that I was going to be doing this by myself, but this is good because I am not long-winded enough to carry on something interesting all on my own.
As soon as I got the notification that my channel was live, I'm like, oh, well, I better get in the room.
Oh yeah, you don't want to leave it in the hands of just the Metal Snob.
That's your that's your name, your moniker now.
Yep, yep. It's
I'm the Metal Snob. I remember it, so you don't have to.
exactly. But I really enjoyed this film. One thing that I really did like is I was afraid that they'd do sort of like a Star Wars with this, where they would take the technology and amp it up because like the first Blade Runner was made in the 80s when analog technology was kind of at its peak. The cool thing about this film is they ran with that concept. There was, of course, like the holographic technology and things of that nature, but they did kind of give an alternate reality to our own where Atari is still out there and where analog technology is still viable and it's still advancing. So they had some analog type tech that seemed like it was a little bit beyond what we have right now, but it still seemed feasible, which I think is really important when you're dealing with like the hard sci-fi of a dirty world like Blade Runner.
Well, yeah, and the reason it got made is because of the success of the original Blade Runner. So it's like I will say I have not seen this movie, but if they're using just the retro futuristic chic of the first movie, which at the time was like the real future, you know, then it's proof that it was made for some very cynical reasons. Like like would you say that this one is like not really an examination of like life and technology and whatnot, and more of just like fan service?
No, I wouldn't say this one was fan service by any means. The intro to the film, I'm not going to lie, was a hell of a lot of fan service, but here's the difference between the fan service in this and say Star Wars Greatest Hits. The fan service at the beginning of this actually served a purpose to really hook us into our main character.
Ryan Gosling?
Yeah, the goose, I actually gave a shit about him. It was probably his best performance since The Driver and The Nice Guys.
His best role since The Driver and the other silent guy who murders people in Only God Forgives.
Yeah, it's funny though, because I know that you were making fun of his stoicism in the movie, but it's actually explained really damn well. And honestly, like his performance, like I think that the stoicism really lent itself to the character because there's sort of an unnerving quality about him with that stoicism, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how they would explain it in every other movie that he's in. Like, or because I see Ryan Gosling as like a video game protagonist, and that he's basically a blank slate that people uh, self-insert into for like power fantasy purposes.
That sounded incredibly dirty, but I'm running with it.
Yeah, I would insert myself into Ryan Gosling if that was the only option.
Fair enough, man. Hashtag stuff the goose.
Oh boy.
Force feeding.
But yeah, as far as this film goes, the performances, Robin Wright, used quite sparingly, but I enjoyed her. Jared Leto, like, this man totally redeemed himself from Suicide Squad for me.
Jared Leto's one of those actors where he's kind of hit or miss, right? Like either he completely nails his character and he does exactly what he's supposed to do, whether it's love him or hate him, or
Well,
he's just so god awful and you spend most of your time just hating him and waiting for his scenes to be over.
well, like, I think the thing about Jared Leto is he has to have an actor who can keep a leash on him, sort of like Marlon Brando in a way.
An actor or a director?
Oh, sorry, a director who can keep a good leash on him.
I swallowed a bug.
Because, like, I'm sure Seamus would probably want to keep a leash on him from that comment.
But do you think, without getting into too many spoilers, honestly, I don't care because I try to not give money to, IP cash-ins.
Right.
Like, do you think a movie like Blade Runner has stuff to say in the current year about technology, or is it more of the same? And does it hold up? Is it still relevant?
I think that it has something to say.
Like, what is the theme of this one?
Are you talking about the original Blade Runner still having something to say and being current, or 2049?
I mean the new one. Like, what would you say like the overarching theme of this is, or kind of the lesson we're,
I would say
not the lesson, the thing we're meant to ponder.
I would say that the overarching theme is actually a lot closer to the novel "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep" than the original film ever got. It's mostly a lesson in empathy and identity, which the original Blade Runner did have in spades, but not in this sort of style.
I would actually disagree with you on the theme of the original novel. I think the original novel's theme, or the Blade Runner got the original theme of the novel "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep" perfectly, right? Is when my reasons for not believing the world around me is real, how do I know what's real? And I think the original Blade Runner nails that question very well. But it doesn't answer that question, which is what I love about the original movie.
Here's the thing about this film. It does still ask a lot of those questions, but without too many spoilers, in a different context. My girlfriend and I were talking about it after the film, and we agreed that while it's still ambiguous, the end is a little bit more, I guess, wrapped up and fulfilling than the original Blade Runner. The original Blade Runner, why it's so great, is because of that ending.
And because Harrison Ford murders a woman by shooting her through a plate glass.
Does 2049 resolve any of the ambiguity around the end of Blade Runner?
No, I think it just muddies it even more.
Okay, that's all I ask. Because, like I was saying in the last stream I did about Blade Runner, I don't want the questions from Blade Runner answered by 2049.
No, honestly, 2049, it dances around those questions because it gives you so many new questions.
That's perfect. I mean, if that's what Blade Runner is supposed to do, it's supposed to leave open-ended, ambiguous questions.
Like, as far as this goes, the investigation is completely different. The circumstances are completely different. And I was really afraid, too, going into it, that it would be like one of those sequels that's a total rehash of everything.
Did they kill Harrison Ford in this one?
Don't want to know. Don't want to know.
I just want to know that Harrison Ford, the actor, is happy. And usually that means his character being dead.
Why, oh, why didn't he kill off Indiana Jones then? The next question is, I've often said that I would love to go to bed one night and then wake up in Blade Runner, just for aesthetic reasons alone. Am I going to want to go to bed and wake up in 2049?
Yes. I was going to get into that. Roger Deakins, like, oh my God, he really outdid himself. And I was fortunate enough to go see this film in IMAX. And holy shit, that was absolutely breathtaking. Like, at several points during the movie, my girlfriend looked at me and she said, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm not crying because of the visuals, you bitch. Don't touch me." It's like...
Does it have practical stuff or is it all CG?
It has both, to the effect that you don't really see the seams.
Yeah, because here in Queens, you can go to the Museum of the Moving Image and see the exterior, the beautifully, very finely sculpted outside of that giant pyramidal building in the beginning of the first movie.
Oh yeah.
The reason it looks so real is because it is real.
Oh yeah. Oh, go ahead.
That goes back to one thing that I loved about the original Lord of the Rings trilogy so much was Peter Jackson's philosophy of visual effects. You only use CGI to accomplish what you really can't with practical effects. And it's just like the same thing with Jurassic Park, right? Use the animatronic dinosaurs at all times, unless you can't get that done with an animatronic dinosaur, right? You can't have a physical T-Rex stomping down the road chasing after Jeff Goldblum. You kind of got to animate that shit. But when you have a dying Triceratops lying on the floor or a Velociraptor cocking its head trying to listen for the kids in the kitchen, yeah, you can do that with a practical effect.
And that's the thing that I really enjoyed about this, because you can tell that the people and the props and everything are real in this. It's just some of the things that they're doing are highly augmented, which is exactly what visual effects are supposed to be.
Highly augmented? What do you mean by that?
Anything that you physically can't capture in camera is augmented by CGI.
Now I'm questioning. It's like, I wonder what they believed they could do if it really is that, like, do or die. Because I actually don't have a problem with CG, as Jim mentioned. Jurassic Park is full of it, or
yeah,
it's CG is best used to enhance practical effects. Just add little details and things.
To my eye, it looked exactly like that's what was happening with this. Villeneuve is a really good in-camera director, and man, Roger Deakins' whole direction of photography, especially with just the lighting alone, was fantastic.
Yes. So, what was the the primary emotion you were feeling while watching this? Did it excite your emotions? Is it funny or is it sad?
Mostly it was intrigue and intrigue with suspense. Like there's a lot of curiosity when I was going into this film, and then as soon as they actually started going into the plot, I began getting more and more curious until stuff started happening, and then it became suspenseful, because that's one thing I love about the original Blade Runner is like that scene in the hotel when Roy is chasing Deckard through the dilapidated hotel. That's a brilliant scene of tension right there. And I think this film really, really, really does its best and succeeds in trying to capture that genuine tension, but make it completely different at the same time.
Yes. So I take it this is a big recommendation from the Sam Man.
Yeah, on the Tommy Wiseau scale, I'm going to give it a quarter of a Tommy.
Oh, why that quarter? And also, what does that quarter look like? Is the quarter just a quick little, okay, bye?
Yeah, basically.
A little passing Tommy.
It's basically Tommy going, "What's new with you?"
No.
Yeah.
I give it a quarter of a football.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like I can't say anything about it without spoiling anything, because like if you think you know what's going on when you watch the trailer, honestly, I'm going to tell you, you don't know shit.
Was generally was the problem that you had with like the script or the characterization or some effect or something like that?
The problem that I had generally was with probably the final edit, because I know that the original cut was about 4 hours long. So there were certain things, there was just one certain detail that it looked like it was setting something up for the rest of the film, but it completely dropped off. Although it still served a purpose, I feel like it would have had an actual payoff if we got to see what the rest of that edit looked like.
No. So is that everything we want to say about Blade Runner? Or
Yeah, I'm gonna say like Blade Runner 2049. If you loved the first Blade Runner, check this out. Definitely try to check it out in IMAX, because with just the sound design and that score combined with the visuals, it's fucking brilliant. And it's the same type of film as the first Blade Runner, but it's not the same film, if that makes sense. It's not the same story. It does not hit the same beats.
I go for authenticity. So instead of seeing it in IMAX, I'm probably going to wait for it to come to degraded VHS. So I'll catch it on Betamax.
Mm.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Jim, do you have any other questions?
Not right now, no.
Patrick, Mr. McPike, do you have anything to say?
I don't think he can speak because his microphone isn't working.
Is he lost at sea or something?
Yeah,
actually, I think I figured out why my mic wasn't working.
Why is that?
Just a configuration issue.
Gotcha. All right. Do you have anything to input or add? Did you get a chance to check this film out?
I haven't seen the film. I've perused some of the critiques, but I've been kind of careful because I didn't want to run across too many spoilers. Pardon me. I'd gotten the impression that it was visually stunning, but that the story could be lacking. But after hearing some of your analysis, I think that can be sort of dependent upon individuals. Like, I think some people are more visual in general, and so they get more information visually than others. I think that was always one of like Scott's big things, was he was very visual, and he tended to convey things very visually.
Yeah,
and not everybody processed all the things that he was trying to convey. So now I'm kind of the opinion that it may be lacking in the story, or it may be that a chunk of the story that people perceive as being lacking is really conveyed visually, and they just didn't process it. So basically, I'm kind of like, I just have to take the time to go out and watch it. See what happens.
I highly recommend it. The only other movie I'm this excited for is The Disaster Artist.
That's the one based on The Room, right?
Yes, sir. But
the movie based on the book, based on the experiences of making the movie.
Oh yeah, it's like Inception right there. But yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, give it a shot. It's very good, and like I said, it hits my general complaint, like, and fixes or restores my faith in cinema. It's show, don't tell. And don't assume that your audience is a bunch of idiots who need stuff spoon-fed to them.
That's it. Don't put too much faith in cinema. We have a few months left until the end of the year. I'm sure they'll leave a sour taste in your mouth by January.
I was going to say, if anything, it's probably the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god, a movie I enjoyed. What is this?
Yeah. I think I really do think though that Denis Villeneuve could potentially be the Stanley Kubrick of our time. This guy is such a masterclass at visually conveying an idea to you. He gets the atmosphere and tension just right in every one of his films that I've seen. Sort of like how I think Chris Nolan is the Martin Scorsese of our generation.
I wouldn't go that far. it's high praise for the Nolan. Batman Begins was terrible.
No, I disagree.
It had bad choreography and lighting. It was all, the camera was up too close. You couldn't see stuff. Made me want to go back and watch, I don't know, the old Ninja Turtles movies or something. They pan the camera out, you can actually see people kicking each other.
Oh, what a story. But yeah.
What I'm waiting for is the fucking Syndicate movie. When are they going to make that?
Yeah.
Like if we're doing, or if we're still writing the 80s retro futuristic nostalgia thing.
Yeah.
Like a fucking Syndicate movie. Well, actually, I guess they kind of did. It was called The Matrix, but yeah. Besides that.
Oh boy. But does anybody have any closing statements here?
When it comes to Blade Runner, really my only response is take my money.
It's fanboys sicken me.
I guarantee you, Jim, your money, you'll probably feel like it's money well spent when you go there. Just don't take the kids unless you want them to see ass and titties and some other stuff.
Since my only nights off now are school nights, yeah, I probably won't end up taking the kids anyway. They haven't even seen the original. I can barely get them to sit still through an entire Star Wars flick. I don't know how I'm going to get them to sit through a film like Blade Runner.
Oh,
wait a minute. They won't sit through Star Wars?
No, like they'll get
Whoa.
bored during something like the exposition or what, like halfway through, like they'll kind of wander away, and then, oh hey, space battle time, or Luke versus Darth Vader in Cloud City. I better come back.
I just want to say I've always assumed that you were a good parent until I heard that your kids won't sit through Star Wars.
Well, I can imagine wandering away during Empire or Jedi because those movies are fucking have bad pacing. But Star Wars 77, they should be glued. And yeah, if they can't sit through that, there's some medical issue.
Well, I mean, first I got to find the time to actually sit down for a 2.5 hour movie with the kids. That right there is a challenge.
Yeah.
That's why they called me the old man.
Yeah, is this movie good for kids? Would kids enjoy it? Would you guys enjoy it?
No.
No, it's boring.
I wouldn't say it's boring, but you need an attention span to actually enjoy this movie.
It's called Cerebral. Get it right.
People.
I also heard that there really isn't any sort of comic relief until almost the very end.
the worst time to have it.
I only laughed one time in this whole movie. The rest of it was just.
Was that towards the very end?
It was about halfway through the film.
Was there anything worth laughing at in the original? I can't remember. Like, I maybe got a bit of a chuckle, and that was just kind of like maybe a laugh and a bit of a snort to myself when he was doing that whole union rep bit.
Yeah,
Close
that
to
was
Zora.
about it. Yeah, that was about it for me, man.
Yeah, I don't remember anything about the original being laughed at, and that's a good thing, though.
Yeah,
Because I think a lot of people try to disguise a bad movie with campy one-liners or whatnot.
too many
Like
quips.
Avengers.
Yeah.
There, I said it. The Avengers is a bad movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't fault you for hating on Marvel, Disney in general.
They are owned by Mickey, the Great Overlord.
Yeah, get your filthy gloved hands off my fucking copyright laws.
Yeah.
By
Seamus,
the way, Cuphead is great.
Seamus, do you have any sort of closing statements or questions about Blade Runner 2049?
Not particularly. I had a few kind of scattered thoughts about just the retro future revival in general, but nothing that relates specifically to Blade Runner.
All right.
I'm wondering if like movies set in that world and that conception of the future can still ask like pertinent questions. I mean, I guess there's certain timeless questions. Why are we here? Where are we going? But yeah, I wonder if things like Black Mirror or something have kind of supplanted those types of movies and those types of worlds.
I would say that yes, this does ask new and interesting questions for sure.
Yeah, if it's like if it can be like if it could ask any real question about like technology rather than be more of a stage for a character or like a morality play or something like that.
I'd say that it really does hit that, and like I said, it hits on story tropes on empathy, identity, and reality really, really well, which are staples in Blade Runner, in my opinion. Patrick, do you have any? Did I get closing thoughts or questions from you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. It's good to put a voice behind the name, though. Most of our interactions have been via keyboard, so cheers, mate.
That's all right. I'm generally better thought out over keyboard. So
Oh,
Hey,
yes.
fair enough.
Weren't you one of the policy mic boys? Right?
don't bring back all those negative memories, Seamus.
We wouldn't be
yeah.
here today if it wasn't for that website that became BuzzFeed.
Very true. Very, very true.
So yeah, I'd like to say in closing the Blade Runner 2049, I still need some time to process it. I will come back, I promise, with an in-depth analysis once I give people time to actually go to the theater and see it, which I highly recommend. And then I'll give you my more thought out and organized analysis to it. But in the meantime,
going to do repeat viewings? Could you see yourself watching this again in
yes,
5 years?
Yes, this is the sort of movie that I want to watch several more times. And that's to get a better grasp on what I just saw.
Oh.
Just like the first one, in my opinion.
Yeah. Is it a movie that you could see putting on during Thanksgiving when you're drunk and half asleep?
No, because I would be mad at myself for falling asleep while trying to watch it.
That's high praise.
Did they ever answer the real question about Blade Runner?
Whether or not Deckard's a robot?
Where are all the brown people in Los Angeles 2049?
Oh, God.
Well, after the Trump administration.
No, they did not answer Anita Sarkeesian's question. However, there was an African guy in there and a couple Asian people. So,
by the way,
only a couple. There were a lot of Asian people in the first one.
The entire panel here, the entire cast is of the opinion that Anita Sarkeesian is exactly what she described: Sargon of Akkad, a garbage human being who should be platformed at every opportunity. And the world would be a much better place if she had never become a public figure ever.
People are still talking about Anita Sarkeesian?
Yeah, she's still a thing.
And furthermore, the only thing that she really should be doing is making some bros in New Jersey's life miserable.
Anyhow, yeah, I think that just about concludes my initial thoughts on Blade Runner 2049. I highly recommend it. And yeah, I'm Sam, the Metal Snob, and tonight we've been geeking out about Blade Runner. See you guys next week.